Well, hello, Miss Cheyenne. I'm so glad you're
Hello.
with me today. Welcome to the Nutra Narratives podcast.
Thank you.
Cheyenne, please tell me, where are you from?
Well, originally I was born in California. My family moved to the southern part of the United States to North Carolina when I was in the fourth grade. Now they live in Georgia, and I have migrated back to California due to going to Loma Linda.
Yes, wonderful. We're so happy to have you as one of our students.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Cheyenne, what made you go, whoa, I want to become a dietitian? Ooh, I like nutrition. What sparked all that?
I would say what sparked it for me was looking at where society is right now with food. For
Okay.
me personally, I'm the sort of person where I say, okay, if there's a problem, let's try to figure out what the root of it is.
Oh,
And
nice.
so for me, when I look at nutrition and I look at all of the chronic diseases that are out there, yes, I do believe in our healthcare system, but I do believe in the focus of nutrition and working on the person's lifestyle. So I hold that true.
Mm, I really, really love that. Was there any personal story with that? Were there any family members at all, or you? It's just an observation, a general
I would
observation.
I would say maybe like two things for me as a child was one, when my grandmother and I were little, she would always like have me on her lap. Um, and I would look at her and she would have these books just filled with herbs. And she would have like her own little capsule makers, and she would take me to the health food store with her.
Love it.
So that was like a really special time for me as a child, and I became fascinated with herbs and health at that time. And then as I got older, um, I was sick at one point in time. I constantly, every single year, would have to take visits to the hospital. And that was mainly because of me having issues with my flora. As a woman, and they constantly were telling me, well, you have to do this, and they would give me pills. And it was just a nonstop cycle for me. And one year I got so fed up. My mom took me to like a holistic doctor, and they had told me they had diagnosed me with stage 3 systematic candida. And so basically, instead of just having like a normal yeast infection, it had like spread throughout my body,
Yeah.
and it totally freaked me out because I didn't know what to do. A dietitian sat down with me, and she kind of like ran me through like all of the things that I couldn't eat, which I felt like at that time was nothing because, the Candida diet is basically like no sugar.
Yeah.
So she was telling me, okay, fruit, turns into sugar. If you eat bread or pasta, that will turn into sugar.
Oh,
So I was like, well, what can I eat?
right. Uh-huh.
Um,
Exactly.
so I it drove me to want to research on my own, what I could do for my diet, and how I could really help myself. And that's when I had, done a little bit of research into like more plant-based options, more nutrient-dense foods, and my flora just cleaned up. And then the last time I went to the doctor, the lady told me like there was nothing. They gave me tests, and the candida was gone. So that was
Praise
that was a blessing for me. Yeah, so it caused me to like really realize, wow, like diet really matters.
So true. And you just helped prove with your own personal story that a lot of things do begin in the gut. And if we
Mm,
just take care of that,
yeah,
that all these other things can also get resolved. So
yeah.
kudos to you for doing your homework and saying, is it just about removing things? What about taking care of the gut?
Yeah,
Wow, look at that. You figured that out on your own. That's so amazing.
thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And then, so that experience made you go, okay, dietitian it is.
Yeah, for sure. It made me realize that it was something that I was definitely passionate about, and I wanted to look more into it.
Hmm. So then, How did you find Loma Linda University?
So good question. I was actually a nursing student before.
Okay. Yes.
And so
Glad
I
we
was
have you
in,
now.
thank you. Yeah, I was in a nursing program at Oakwood University.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and I was doing well, but I just did not feel passionate about what I was doing. And I didn't really know how to explain that to my parents very well because I couldn't really voice it. It was like I just, my spirit was just not there in the program. And so, um, God called me to leave the nursing program, and I was out of school for a year. And one day I was sitting down on my bed and I was looking at some nutrition stuff in a magazine that I was looking at with like different healthy foods. And I was like, you know what? Um, I think I might like want to do nutrition. And I took a career test that one of my friends sent me, and I took it twice. And actually, nutrition dietitian was at the top
Hmm.
twice in a row. So I was looking on like I looked at Loma Linda because I knew that it was a healthcare school.
Mhm.
And I realized you guys had a nutrition program, and I was like, wow, okay. So it just all started like falling into place. Yeah.
Ah, wonderful. That's great. Yeah, I'm glad you took that test, and more young
Yeah.
people who are undecided yet should do things like that, take
Yeah.
tests to see where it leads them.
Yeah, it was very, very helpful for me, especially because I was in a period where I was interested in multiple things, and having that test really, you know, helped me have a deciding factor. And for me, I knew that when I took the test, I didn't really kind of do the in between answers, where it kind of tells you to say here, between 1 and 5. I was very like straight, like yes or no, because I wanted the answer for whatever I got to be very clear to me. Okay, this is
Good.
like what you want to do. So,
Yes, that was a smart thing to do. That's great. And so you arrived at Loma Linda about a little over a year ago. How was that transition moving from home, Georgia, right,
yeah.
all the way over to California? Was that smooth sailing?
No.
Okay.
No, it was not smooth sailing. It was very stressful. And it seemed like the devil threw everything in my way to where he did not want me to come to Loma Linda. So the first time that I had applied, or I tried to apply to the program at Loma Linda, because they only accept people once a year, I didn't have all of my classes done, or all of the prerequisites, because the nursing classes that I had taken were not like the same. So I had to do my chemistries over. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to do this, but it was like a very short window of time that I had to like get all of that together. And my finances just weren't there. And so it didn't work out the first time around. I missed the date to get out and everything. And I was very devastated about that, because it kind of just put me in a phase where I felt like I was back at square one. And I was kind of like second guessing God. And I was like, well, maybe this isn't really what he wants me to do.
I don't blame
So
you. Yeah, I would have moved
yeah,
away.
yeah, I'm like, it's all the way in California. So, I even started to I started to think about going into, starting to do nursing again,
Mm.
because I just got to the point where I was like, I just want to finish school. I just want to be done. I'm tired of this. And I don't want to waste my time anymore. But God works in mysterious ways.
Mm. Mm.
And something, called me back to just finishing out my classes, to be able to go to Loma Linda. And I did.
Yeah.
Thank God I did. I got all of my classes done.
Whew.
So the next thing was my finances, obviously transitioning over. Obviously Loma Linda is a private school. So, it is up there in expenses. So I didn't have like the money to be able to come, basically. And I was trying to figure out like how that was gonna turn out. And so I needed to get a student loan, basically. Um, and so no one in my family could really co-sign for me. And so I was like, okay, well, how am I going to do this? And even though my own, like as a student, I have good credit and everything like that, I'm very young. So they kind of like my bank that I go with, they were like, no, you can't, sorry, like they said, unless you have a co-signer, you can't sign on with us. So I'm like in the kitchen and I'm crying. I'm like, Mom, this is it. Like, I'm just not supposed to go here, blah, 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 and and my mom is like, get it together. She's like, you need to have more faith in God.
Wow.
She
Wow.
was like, believe in him. He didn't get you this far.
Right.
Just don't give up, keep pressing forward. And so
Mm, mm.
my mom was like, why don't you try this company and try it online? And I was kind of like at wit's end. It was almost time for, me to go to Loma Linda. That was just like the last thing that I kind of like the last thing I needed. And so I tried it. I put in my information and then it approved me.
No.
So that was like a blessing right there. And so then the next thing was figuring out where I was going to stay, because at that point in time,
Yeah.
the dorm, the dean over the dorm, she was telling me that there was a possibility that there wouldn't be any room,
No way.
left in the dorm for me. And so, I kind of was like, I don't know what I'm going to do as far as like money, because it's really expensive. And if I could get in the dorm, that would be amazing. Well, the dean told me it was up in the air. And one day I just randomly got a call from her.
Wow.
I wasn't supposed to get a call until like only like a couple of weeks before school started. But God made it to where she called me by accident. She
Oh,
called me by accident. She was supposed to be talking to another girl. So
no way.
she was on the phone and she was like, hello, so and so, I just want to let you know that you got a room or whatever, right? And she started to realize like in her head that it was me,
Oh,
because earlier in the year or whatever, I had sent her a letter thanking her already in advance, like, thank you, I appreciate this opportunity. And so she was like, actually, I wasn't supposed to be calling you, but I want to let you know, since I'm already on the phone with you, that yes, we have a room available for you as well.
oh,
So
oh,
it
wow.
was like God was like letting me know that even though, obviously I wasn't supposed to know like till way later, he was reassuring me like, it's going to be okay. I
Oh,
have a spot for you there. And when you would think things couldn't get any worse, this is like the tip of the iceberg. So
okay.
I'm like, okay, I got all my stuff to go. Everything's
Right.
good.
Yeah.
Then my car
Oh.
started having transmission issues. And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do about this? Because I obviously need a car to drive around California. Um, what am I going to do?
Yeah, of
So
course.
I was driving on the road and I was on my way, I think, to the mall one day or something like that. And my car just stops in the middle of the road.
Oh, Cheyenne.
And I'm like, okay, this is dangerous.
Yes.
So I'm like waving my hand out the window and I'm like, making sure no one hits me. So I call my mom and then I'm like, okay, like I got to get a new car. I can't drive this car. And they're like, okay, well, we only have like a little while right before school starts. So we got to start searching for a place for you to find a car. And so I kept driving that car.
Mm.
And the day of that I was going to go look for a car, literally the day of,
Okay.
the day of, I'm on my way there. My stepdad just got off of work. He was on his way there to help me trade in, to see if he could trade in my car to purchase this car. My car started smoking. And I'm just like, I didn't even know it was my car at first because that had never happened. So I pulled on the side of the road and I'm like, oh no. I call my stepdad. I'm like, how am I going to trade in this car? Who's going to want this car now? And he's like, we're going to get some antifreeze. It's going to be okay.
Wow.
So we put some antifreeze in it. We're praying to God. We're like, Lord, we don't know what we're going to do, but we believe in you. And we're just going to drive it over there and see what happens. So we get in the, he drives his car and I'm like behind him. We get to the place. Thankfully, it was like only 7 minutes from my house.
Oh.
And, we let the guy test drive it and, let him see it and look at it. And he allowed us to test drive the car. And he looked at it and everything. And he's like, I'll take it. And he allowed me to walk out of the car dealership without even my loan for the car fully financing through. And I was just like,
No.
how was that even possible? Like, what?
Amazing.
Like,
Amazing.
yeah, I'm like, wow. So it just reminded me like, what God has for me, he has for me.
Yes.
And when God has like a calling on your life,
Yes.
and he wants you to do something, he's going to make that happen. Fast forward to this year, I ran into the same issue with COVID-19, not having enough money to go to school, because once again, another year was up and I needed money for the school year.
Yeah.
And I needed another loan. But the issue was I didn't have a job at this time around. My parents still were not able to co-sign for me. They tried, they couldn't.
Oh.
Um, and so I was just like, what am I gonna do? And something in my mind told me, Cheyenne, God would not have brought you this far
Mm.
to turn you back now. He would not do that to you.
Mm.
And I had peace inside of me
Yeah.
that everything was going to be okay. So I called the loan people and the lady was just like, no, I'm sorry, that's it, it's final. And I'm like, but I'm a good customer. I make sure everything is good. I'm already with you guys, right?
Mhm.
And so I think it was just maybe like COVID-19 that was making it bad, but I was very diligent and I continued to call. And then one day, like a different lady was just like, okay, I'll let you talk to someone.
Wow.
So she let me talk to this one guy and he's like, you know what, Shine? I'm going to work with you. I'm going to work with you. He was like, I'm going to call you back. Okay. So just wait for my phone call in the week. So he called me back and then like 2 days later or a day later, and he was like, okay, I'm still looking at stuff. Continue to wait. So I'm still praying to God. I'm like, I'm still going to keep the faith, Lord. And then second time around, he's like, okay, I'm still working on that. It's all the whole week, like a later. It's Friday. And I'm walking around Loma Linda campus in the morning. It's like 6:00, and I'm just, because I enjoy walking in the morning.
Yeah.
And he calls me at that time because it was Eastern time. And so he was like, you're up? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just walking around. And he's like, okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and I just want you to answer them for me. So he's asked me like, why did I want to become a dietitian? Where do I see myself after I'm done working? And he asked me all of these questions. And then he said, okay, I could see you really care, Cheyenne. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put you on hold, okay? So he put me on hold, and I was on the phone on hold for like 30 minutes.
Oh.
And during this time, I'm just sitting there and I'm just praying to God. I'm like, Lord Jesus, like, this to me is like you working. Yes, obviously, I don't know whatever, but I know that this is you working in my behalf. So I'm just going to continue to pray. And that's all I'm going to do. So the whole time I'm just continuing to pray. I'm texting my family on the side, please pray for me. And they're like, yes, we'll pray for you. And then he gets back on the phone 30 minutes later and he's like, you're still on the phone? I'm like, yes. He's like, the line went out and my phone like disconnected and I didn't expect you to still be on the phone. He was like, that's impressive.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I was like, yeah, I mean, I really want this. So he's like, oh, okay. Well, how about this? I'm gonna call you back today. Okay? I'm gonna call you back today. I'm
Oh.
gonna give you an answer. just give me like 45 minutes to an hour or whatever. So he calls me back like around that time, and then he's like, I just want to let you know that I approved your loan. And I was just so happy. I just like cried out tears of joy because I was like, I do serve a God. Like,
Yes.
I serve a God, and
This
I
is
know that there
true.
is a God. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
It strengthened your faith going
it
through
did.
that.
Yeah,
Oh, Cheyenne. All the like sitting on the edge of your seat and just waiting, and every single time God made himself known.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So he's
Cheyenne.
been amazing
Yeah.
to me this year. Even so, with like right now, I'm spiritual vice president of the School of Allied Health. And I
Yeah.
wasn't even expecting that because the person that initially was supposed to do it stepped down.
Okay.
And I had tried out for it, but I didn't get it. And I was like, well, it wasn't meant to be, you know?
Yeah.
And God was like, no, I like everything that I don't think that I'm supposed to have, God puts it there for me because he's telling me like I have something that I want you to do.
Oh,
And he puts people into my life, and just this whole entire year throughout everything, even my brother getting hit,
right. Right.
on his motorcycle on his way home,
Uh-huh.
um that was a blessing. I
Yes.
mean, he could have died, but I thank God I have a praying family, and he's up and he's walking.
I was
I
gonna
mean,
ask, how is he doing? He's walking. Oh,
he's a walking miracle. I mean, he still is walking with a limp right now because he's still healing, but for a person to have broken their femur, their tibia, their ankle, their wrist, their thumb, their arm in two places, um for him to be walking and to be okay, I can only attest that to God.
yes. Yes. Amen.
Yeah.
Wow. Did that accident brought on all of those broken parts of his body?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he was on his way
wow.
home, and this just happened this past summer right before school started. And someone just like a SUV hit him in the middle of the night, and we got that phone call while we were just eating dinner. And, obviously that's like the phone call no mother wants to hear, like,
Nope.
oh yeah, your
Nope.
child is hit, and the first thing we're trying to figure out is like, well, how bad is the damage? Is he okay? Can he speak?
Oh,
Um, and she's like, he's talking right now, but we don't know like what the damage is. And so when we had reached the scene, um you know we didn't really know how to feel about it because his leg just looked so bad. I mean, you could see the muscle, you could see the bone,
oh,
and we were like, oh my gosh, we just hope he's not like physically impacted, for the
right.
rest of his life. And then
True.
because it was COVID-19 going on this year, the lady or the ambulance was like, we're sorry, you can't ride in the ambulance with your son. You have to, we don't think you'll be able to go to the hospital either.
Oh,
And so that my mom was just like
oh,
going insane.
yeah.
And thank God, like the police officer that was there, one of them was like, yeah, you know what? It's gonna be okay if you just go up there and
Okay,
try. All they can say is no.
that's true.
So my mom went up there and she was able to see my brother,
Oh,
and she was able to they allowed her to go into a surgery. He had 5 surgeries, and
oh,
one of the things that really was another blessing is because his arm, the doctor who had, I guess had him initially, didn't take off his bandage on his arm. It made his blood clot,
oh,
and thicken and freeze inside of his arm. And so
oh,
the surgeon said that what had happened is when he started to, I guess, like do the surgeries on my brother's body, he realized that his blood was starting to freeze up. So the only thing he could do was cut more lacerations in his arm so that
oh,
the blood could kind of flow out. And that's kind of another reason why my brother had to even have like an extra cast on his arm. But it kind
Oh,
of gave him a little bit of issues with his muscles, as far as like being able to completely close his hand. But God was so good because everything turned out good. And I'm happy that the doctor noticed that it's like the small things.
right.
So,
But that was so important for the doctor
yeah,
to notice that.
yeah,
Even through your brother, God continued to work and bless. He
yeah,
protected him, he preserved his life. And to think that you're there back at home in Georgia to also help with his care,
yeah. I'm
right?
actually the one who found this house for my parents. So
You
I,
recently moved.
yeah, so I feel like God has everything happen for a reason because if I was not here, I just don't think anything would be the same. And being home during this time has really been helpful, to just be able to like walk our pets and things like that. And so
Mm.
God just works in really mysterious ways. What the devil meant for harm, us having to take classes online for right now during this time, God meant for good. And he's been able to use that.
Amen. Amen. I love how you're seeing things through the lens of God's eyes. And when we do see life through that, then it makes us feel at ease. It makes us feel so incredibly grateful. And your story is, you sharing your story is such a powerful testimony.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad you're an officer with SAPSA this year. And
Thank
I
you.
know that you're being a very valuable officer to that group. And so, Cheyenne, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but what are your personal nutrition practices that you like to make sure that you do on a regular basis?
For me, for sure, I always like to have fruit. Like with every single meal, I make sure that I at least have some sort of vegetable or some sort of fruit because I don't know, it's the guilty in me. Like I'm like, I have to at least have like a nutritious part to this meal. So that's something I try to hold dear.
If
I
there's a good
definitely,
guilt, that's a good guilt to have.
yeah. So there's that. I definitely try to drink water,
Perfect.
as much water as I possibly can. I definitely am a believer that it helps with your skin and just having like, a clear brain, everything. So,
Right.
water and definitely having those nutrient dense foods throughout the day.
Beautiful. Excellent. So I want to end with, and thank you for sharing those with us. I want to end with, I know I didn't tell you this, but I know that you have one because we've talked about this in class. What is your favorite Bible verse?
Oh, yes. Favorite Bible verse is Proverbs 3, 5 through 6.
That one's mine
Um,
too.
Yeah. It's trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him and he shall direct thy path. And the reason why I love that verse so much is because it kind of just reminds us to let go and let God.
Ah,
And to me, that is like the whole testament of my life.
yes.
Try and let go, just stop. And
Mine
for
too.
whatever, yeah, like the more I let go, the better my life seems. And the more harder I try to actually do everything right, the more I screw up. And to me, the most peaceful I've ever been, or when I'm at my peak of happiness, is when I put God first in my life
Amen.
and when I make sure that everything else is second. And sometimes it's really hard to do that as a student because, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to get this in, I have to do this, I have to do that. But I have realized that my grades are better, my life is better, my relationships are better when I take out time for God and I say, no matter what, I am putting you first.